Hello, everybody, and welcome to RockSim Live with Michelle, not Tim. um, Tim is actually on his way. Can you hear me okay? My microphone's, there we go. Looks like it's good. Um, Tim is on his way to the FAI World Space Modeling Championships. Oh, forgot to mute my, I forgot to mute myself, so I was listening to myself. There's a delay of about 20 seconds. Um, yeah, Tim is on his way to the FAI World Space Modeling Championships in Austin, Texas. Those are we call it the Olympics of model rocketry. So it's the World Championships, and it moves around the world every year or every 2 years. And It's been in the Ukraine, it's been in Romania, I think it was in Poland. So it moves around. I don't know why it ends up in Eastern Europe a lot, but that's usually where it is. But this year it's the United States' turn. The first time since I guess 1992 that the U.S. has hosted it. So that's kind of exciting. So he headed down. He swung in this morning to grab a couple last minute things and headed down. So that starts there. Yeah, everybody's checking in good. That starts tomorrow afternoons, like the check-in, and then after that, the competition starts. And Tim's daughter is actually participating. She's flying two events on, I think, Monday and Tuesday. But because it's a team event, they're down there the whole week to support the rest of the Team USA people and to meet all of the international people and hang out. Unfortunately, it's going to be like 105 degrees, which is like somewhere I think like 40, around 40 degrees Celsius. It's going to be very, 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 very hot, and it's outside, and they have to be there all week. So we'll see how that goes. You can actually follow along and see the results on the NARS. The NAR has a link to it on their website, so you can check it out there too, to follow along and root for your team, whether that's Team USA for those of us in the United States, or there's a bunch of teams from around the world. Um, so that'll be pretty cool. So yeah, so Tim's out of town this Friday and next Friday. So I'll be back next Friday too for that. So if you have any RockSim questions this week, you think of anything for me for next week, go ahead and submit them through the website on the contact form. That is lovely. Gives me time to prepare. We didn't have any questions submitted this week ahead of time, so we're kind of winging it today a little bit. So if you have any questions today, throw them in the chat, and we'll try and go over some of those. I have a couple follow-ups from things that Tim's talked about before, and we have a problem that actually stumped us that we haven't been able to figure out. So I thought maybe I'd throw it at you guys and see if anybody can figure it out. And if you can, then there'll be either a free month of premium launch visualizer or booster credits if you're already a premium member for that. So we'll go over that here in a little bit. First, I will check the chat and see how everybody's doing. We got some of our regulars here: Rosa, Carlos, Space is Cool, James, Johannes, Carlos. So cool to see all you guys back every week. It's really neat to see. And we actually had somebody, so we have an email list that goes out on Wednesdays that's sort of what we talked about in the RockSim Live and maybe some other RockSim things generally. And we have somebody who gets that email who was asking about how he could see more of the information. So we do get people who, can't see this live or come in later who do use these, RockSim Lives to, and he's a teacher and he's got a bunch of students. So it's really cool that we were able to point him to all the different history of this. Switch my screen over and um, just as a reminder, if you're checking in on the homepage, you can scroll down and click on the RockSim Training Live, and this is our, library of all 126. This is 127 episodes of this. So if you ever think, gosh, we talked about something last week or the week before, and I don't quite remember what Tim said, you can always come back here and watch it. And these little timestamps will take you straight to that time in the video, so you don't have to scroll around trying to look for what we talked about. there. And just as a reminder, it is the last day of the month. So it is the last day you can get the free tool of the month for June, which is this dental scaler that is available here. If you spend $75 and you put the tool of the month code, which is tool623, when you're checking out, you can get this free little scraper thing. Good for, if you've got little imperfections in your paint or glue blobs that you want to try and get out or anywhere just real tiny. This is a really great tool. Tim uses his all the time. So today is the last day to get that. And then tomorrow, the new tool of the month will be released. So check back on the website and or social media. I already queued up all the social media posts, so you can check that out, what tomorrow's tool of the month is as well. So, okay, I'm gonna go to the chat and then I will see if we have any questions in here. And yeah, so hello everybody. Space is Cool asks, am I any good at making rockets? I'm not that great at rocket building. I don't do it very often, so mine don't. I've made a handful over the years, but they don't look super nice. Um, Tim, does it almost every day, so he's an expert. But I'm a little bit more like you guys, and the beginners of you guys in terms of just hand-eye coordination. Paint, glue always gets everywhere with me for some reason, but let's see. So Carlos says, imagine an unpainted Apogee spec. Can RockSim show the altitude change if we paint it? Is there a paint it function to estimate the weight gain? Do we just guess? So this, and I know we've talked about mass overrides before, but this is where you basically, no matter what rocket you're doing, I'll pull up the spec so we can take a look at it. But no matter what rocket it is, and whether it's painted or not, when you're doing your RockSim calculations, before you fly it, when you have a physical rocket, I don't have any rockets today, but you have your rocket. So you put it in RockSim and you kind of play with it and you figure out, okay, what am I going to do with this? You build your rocket, you're getting ready to fly. Before you go fly it, you can do a final check in RockSim where you take your rocket and weigh it with your scale. And we had the scale as a tool a month a couple months ago, so hopefully you got one. If not, you can still buy it if you just don't get it for free anymore. Um, but that's where the scale comes in handy. So you have your RockSim file. So we'll go ahead and open up. Um, oh, I got things bouncing all over the place here. Close all this out while this is opening slowly. Okay, so we're going to open up a spec. And spec.rk. Oops, RT. Are you gonna be grumpy? My hard drive is like maxed out on space, so searching doesn't really work on this computer because I quit you. I did not quit. Because it's just so full that it takes forever to search. So what am I looking for? Applications. Here we go. Sorry guys, it's been a long week before a holiday week next week, so my brain is a little bit fuzzy. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm a little tired. Signs, Apogee components, and let's see, spec. Okay, so I'm going to put this in 2D mode. So in the picture, you can tell it's painted. I'm sharing my screen, right? I forgot that last time, so this says my rocket, the mass is 13.438 grams. On our website, we say the weight is 10 grams. That's a big difference. Oh, well, we have a mass object in here, so yeah, we have an altimeter in here, so that's probably part of it. Which also, same deal. So I'm gonna fly my rocket. I have put an altimeter in here. So, RockSim without that altimeter maybe thinks it's 10 grams. But I put that altimeter in and suddenly my rocket weighs 13 grams. Or just you paint it and it's not 10 grams, it's 12 grams. You put a lot of paint on it or glue on it. So before you fly it, you can always come back into RockSim and make that adjustment and then rerun your simulations to see. And generally for most kits that are stable, pretty solidly stable, so this is a caliber of 6.5 over stable, it's probably not going to make a big difference. But if you have a rocket that's like marginally stable, then these are the types of things that like a gram or two either way, or where your CG location is, because that's the other thing. Like in this case, this rocket is 3 grams heavier because we put an altimeter up here in the front. So the good news is in that case, it's going to move my center of gravity forward, which generally makes the rocket more stable. But if you're talking about paint, or in a lot of cases, not just paint, but glue. So Tim is like the expert at putting a very tiny itty bitty little bit of glue on there. Like he doesn't want the weight from all the glue. I tend to slop glue around, kids especially slop glue around, and there's just tons and tons of glue. So, on a little rocket like the spec's a little tiny guy. If you add all that weight to the back, you have got tons of glue on there. Use epoxy instead of glue or something. That's going to pull your center of gravity back, which is going to make your rocket less stable. So before you fly it, you can take your kit and you can put your actual, weigh the kit and go, okay, it actually weighs, we'll say 14 grams. So they're, in this case with paint, Carlos, you're just going to do an all rocket mass override because really you can't tell how much paint is on the front end and on how much is on the fins and how much is. You could do that by like individually, opening up each, so you could weigh your painted nose cone and then do a mass override in the nose cone tab. But for paint, I would just do a general mass override. So we don't have our motors loaded yet, but we do have our altimeter in there. So you'll want to make sure all of your internal components, like if you're going to add an altimeter, or in this case, the spec is a competition rocket. And so you sometimes have to launch the NAR payload, which is like a little slug of sand in a tube a lot of times. But so you're going to want to put that in there before you do your mass override because except for motors, once we do this overall mass override, it's not going to change the weight of the rocket. So if I do a mass override and then put an altimeter in it, it's going to stay the same as if the altimeter is not in there. So you always want to make sure all of that stuff's in there, except for your motor is in there. So we'll just go to the mass override tab, check the box to say we're going to use it, and then you're going to measure, so weigh your actual rocket. So this kit is actually a 2-stage rocket, so it gets a little bit more complicated. What you're going to do is first you're going to weigh the sustainer. So you're going to take that booster section off, and you're going to weigh, all of this stuff with the fins, but not the booster. So you're going to weigh that, and then you're going to weigh your booster, and put this in here, so that your total mass, if I do this right, so we're just going to, I'm going to say 10 grams there, and then, I don't remember, this should be first, but 4 grams there. No, it didn't like that. Yeah, apparently it's top down. So sustainer is your top piece, and then your next booster down is your booster. I don't mess with 2-stage rockets very often in RockSim, like to change the mass, so I forget which is which. So then, but then you absolutely have to remember, if you're going to do a mass override, to put in your center of gravity location, because if you see, this is checked to say use these values, and here you have your value of 0. It is 0 inches from the tip of the nose cone. So it's not going to say, oh, we're just going to ignore it because you don't have a value in there. It's going to say that your center of gravity is the tip of the nose cone. And clearly that's not right. If your rocket balances on the tip when it's horizontal, you are magical. So then we actually have to measure, and again, the center of gravity. And again, you're going to do this with just the sustainer, so just your upper section with your, where your first motor would go. So you're going to take your rocket and you're going to balance it on your finger, or, if you've got something fancier, but find that balance point for that one. So I'm just going to cheat and use this. So this is our center of gravity is at 5 inches back. So if I put, let's say like it's 3.5 inches back with just the sustainer, and then the sustainer plus the booster. So you put that back piece back on and measure it, and then now we're going to be 6 inches back. See, now it's back here. Um, and so you have to put um, both of those in there for that to work. Um, and then you can also find the center of gravity for that booster section. So it's probably half in this case. So that booster is like maybe an inch. So we'll put, this is probably from the front tip. So not 7.5. That'll be like not 10. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers here. But so yeah, so that's going to then make sure your center of gravity is correct. So Carlos, that's how you do a paint override. Because the problem is like if we added, say we added a button that says add paint, you'd have to know how much your paint weighed by itself without the rocket, which would be difficult. And then you'd also have to know how thick your paint is on the rocket. Like you'd need to know basically the density of the paint, and then how thick it would be on each end. So assuming you painted evenly, and then, that would theoretically then be able to calculate where the center of gravity of your paint would be. Really complicated. And on most rockets, for competition rocket, that could be, it could make the difference. A lot of people don't paint their competition rockets or just put a quick, like the spec here. The reason it's these like crazy colors is just because for competition rockets, all you care about really is finding it and seeing it. It's not meant to look pretty. I mean, it looks kind of cool, neon, but you need to find it. So, so yeah, so that's how you'd handle kind of any sort of, and that mass override goes for kind of anything. So even if you don't paint your rocket, but generally it's always a good idea, to check your rocket against RockSim's calculated weight because we might build it, Tim, like I said, Tim builds super light, especially competition. Like light is the name of the game. So he tries to get it as light as possible. But for something like the American Rocketry Challenge that the kids do in like high school, they build a rocket that they have to launch an egg into the air and get to a certain altitude and do a certain time duration from launch to land. So there's like kind of three different attitudes towards that. Build it light, and then you can always add weight if you need to bring your altitude down, or remove weight if you need to, or make a bigger parachute. But a lot of kids especially think more like, let's build a tank. How can I keep my egg safe? How can I do it? And so they will build as heavy, there's a 650-gram maximum for that rocket, and they are building it to 649 grams, to make it there because they're building a tank to hold that egg. So there's different ways of doing it, and there are pluses and minuses to both. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But if you want to use RockSim to calculate your altitude, you need to make sure it matches. So for like the TARC competition or the ARC competition, as they're now called, I go and I build the lightest rocket I possibly can and the heaviest rocket I possibly can for RockSim, and then I run simulations to see which motors might be popular for the competition this year, so we can kind of stock up ahead of time. So, and those are, I mean, those can be 300 grams different. That's a lot of weight. So that's why, at the end of the day, I'm going out to the field tomorrow. Just throw a mass override in, weigh your rocket, run your simulations, make sure your motors are still good. Most of the time they will be, but if you've got a really small rocket like this, it could be the difference between working and not. So yeah, I don't know why I don't have the problems that Tim seems to have with sound and things. I do use different microphones than Tim, so that may be part of it, but so let's see. James asks, what do you like best about working at Apogee? We'll come back to that in a second. I want to check in on these other ones. So, and then how do you download different types of rockets in the launch visualizer? Any hint at what the free tool of the month will be for July? Let's see. We're 8 hours away from it going live, so I will super sneakily tell you that it's going to be a digital caliper. So should have grabbed one. So yeah, so this would be awesome for RockSim. If you use RockSim and you guys are RockSim and Launch Visualizer users because you're here, so hopefully you are. It's a caliper. So you may have calipers already if you're, the type of person that needs to measure really, pretty accurately. Like I don't have any at my house because I don't need to measure that. You know, a tape measure works fine for what I'm doing. But if you need to measure, say, tube diameters or whatever, there is a so calipers go in and measure for that. So those will be going live and going, and the coupon will be posted tonight at midnight. Actually, they'll probably be in a couple hours because I'll probably do it before I leave. But tomorrow that will go up and it'll be on social media. So check that out. Definitely useful if you're doing any sort of measurements. Really handy. I grab Tim's all the time to measure stuff here for that. So, yep. Finished your gap stage rocket today with some custom made decals printed out. That's cool. Um, so Johannes was answering Carlos's question too. So adding the mask component. So yeah, he's guessing 3 grams of paint. Again, just depends on how thick you put the paint on there. You could get it down real thin if you tried, or if you're using like an airbrush versus like spray paint versus like a paintbrush, you know, like little kids or use paintbrush, or you use markers, which basically just stains the paper and then doesn't really add it much weight. So it just depends. So, so yeah. Um, okay, so how do we download different types of rockets in the launch visualizer? So we can do that. I will show you my problem child rocket. And actually, it's not a problem child for me, it's a problem child for a customer. So we're going to go to rocksim.com and log in. And let me do a login here real quick. See if I can do this here. So the first thing for downloading designs into the launch visualizer is you need to have an account. So you can fly rockets for free. If you just go to rocksim.com and you click on the little rocket, you can stop. You can do that. So you can't upload a new design if you're on the completely free and not logged in version, because part of the reason is just logistics of you know, your kit files are tied to your email address. So like next time you come in, your files will be there. And if we don't have your email address or any sort of, you know, Google login or whatever, we have nobody to tie it to. So just logistically, you can't upload files for that. And then also, you know, just to get things going a little more. So once you're logged in to the launch visualizer, I'm a basic on this account. I got like 4 accounts, so I can't keep track of which is which. So this is the free account. So you have to create an account and log in, but this account is not paid for, so there's no so this is free. So you can upload your design there. So when you go to if you go to like RockSim, you click on the main page, or you just end up here. This should be the first place you end up at, but for some reason you're somewhere else. On this left hand side, you're going to click select rocket, or this little select rocket. So it'll default to select rocket design, and this will choose from your list. So if you've already uploaded RockSim or rocket files to this is where you'll find them. And there'll be user designs, and these are ones that I've uploaded, and demo designs. And the demo designs should be pretty much the same for all you guys. Mine might be different because they are tied to when you created your account. And so if the demo designs change in the future, it sticks with whatever was when you created your account. So mine might be different, but so that's where those will be. But if I want to put a new rocket file in there, you just go to upload new rocket design, and you can type in the name, or if you just go browse the file, it will pull the file name. So I'm going to pull from my desktop. I have this test rocket, and I just realized I got rid of something that I was going to show you guys. So see, it just pulled from the design file, but we'll call this problem rocket, and then so whatever name you put in there, And then you just do that to upload it. If you have texture files, you can upload those as well. Or if your design file is a zip file that has the textures and the RKT file all together, you can do that all as one. So the textures are, if you look at the Avion kit here, you can see the the decals are on there, the paint schemes on there. That's what textures are. So if you don't upload textures, as you'll see, you're just gonna get the like do that the boring blue rocket. So this is the default. So this is my problem child rocket. Um, so my problem rocket here. So that's how you upload the files. And then you can also, if you want to change them, you go to your user. I haven't done this in a long time. There we go. So you go under user dashboard, and then you come to this little manage data. So if you've saved wind tables, if you've saved launch site, like I put my house in there to launch from my backyard because I can't do that in real life, but I can do it here. And then if you scroll down, there's your designs. So if you say you upload, like this is a test one that I was just playing with for a customer, so I don't necessarily want to keep it, so I can delete it when I'm done. So you can just check here and delete it. But that's how you manage that. And then if you have a paid account, you can see all your payments in there as well. But so that's how you would upload it to them. So it's super easy. You just have to create an account with an email, but you don't have to pay to save your design files. And then you can fly motors up through G without paying as well. So there's a lot of, and then there's a certain number of credits that eventually will run out. But so this went back to my default design. So I have to go choose my other problem rocket. This is the same one here. Okay, so let's see if there's any more questions here. I don't know if the digital caliper could measure the paint thickness. It does only go to 2 digits. There are calipers that go to like something like crazy, like 10 digits out there or whatever. Your paint thickness, I don't know if it would be, that's some pretty thick paint. But and you'd have to be able to measure maybe from like the base, like if you've got your body tube, you could measure up from like the edge of the paper to that. But you'd still need to know the actual density of your paint, like the weight of paint per cubic foot, millimeter, whatever, to be able to put that in, too, for that. So yeah, so this is our problem rocket. Let me pull. I had a screenshot of the error that this person was getting, but when I got rid of all my stuff on my desktop, because you guys don't want to see my messy desktop. Where did my image go? Oh, it might be in my. Nope, I don't even know what that is. Huh. Isn't it funny that you can have things on your computer and not know what they are? Where did you go today? Nope. Clearly things are messy. I prepared things and then there we go. I found it. I was looking for just a generic image and it actually is named, so. Okay. So this is happening in RockSim Pro. This is my question that we could not figure out. And it's just baffling. So somebody is using RockSim Pro and they have a rocket design and they couldn't send us their actual rocket design, so they sent us a test one, which is the one we uploaded. When they go to run the 3D launch visualizer, they're getting this error that says no data found for booster 1 CSV file. So this means nothing, but I can explain. So we have our rocket. So you have to be in RockSim Pro because the 3D visualizer is only in RockSim Pro. So we open this up, open up my test file. and doesn't have a name. So what happens is, so this is a two-stage rocket. So I'm going to just reload the engines that they had used before, and we're gonna launch it. Oh, I gotta check I had problems yesterday, so okay. Yesterday I ran like 10 simulations and couldn't figure out why the rocket wasn't going up, and it's because the staging was set to stage now, which means it stages right this very minute as soon as you hit launch. And so then it was going like 20 feet. And it took me a while to figure out that that was what was going on. So you can set your staging for all the different things. Okay, this rocket has no parachute, so it's going to crash. We know that. But so I run it. It's got two stages. It's flying. Oh, I didn't have this set right, but whatever. So then you go to the 3D profile. So this is what we were looking at in the launch visualizer. This is the desktop version. RockSim Pro has like this built into it, so it runs this nice little 3D visualizer. So similar to the launch visualizer, but in RockSim Pro. This is where the Mercury Redstone launches from. Apparently that's my default location here. So before this even loads, he's getting that error. And what happens is there's a file. Um, there's this crazy file. This is going to get a little technical, sorry, but when it goes to run, um, so when it's going to run, before it runs this, so you run your simulation and then you come here and you want to see that it fly. When you click the button to open it, what it does is it generates these CSV files, and this is all the data on the actual flight. So at this time, at 13.97 seconds, this is the longitude, this is the latitude, this is the altitude above sea level. So it generates all this data for all the different time points. And then that's what it uses for to create this nice little, cartoony type thing. And then you can fly it, and that's how it knows what to do in this thing. So this guy is getting an error saying this file, this booster1.csv, it's missing. Okay, except RockSim has a fix built in. So if this file is missing, or for some reason the booster, if you don't load a motor in the booster, so you just load a motor and say the sustainer, it just ignores the booster. It doesn't generate an error. It just goes, it's a one-stage rocket. So, it's a way, I guess, you can work around. You can work around not having the seconds, not taking it on and off. But so it only loads the front motor, and then we, so launch this. No errors, nothing. And then it goes here, and you'll notice this time around when it loads this, it's just a single stage rocket. It just says, oh, there's no motor in the booster stage. We're fine. We're just going to ignore it. So basically, even if you have a two-stage, and this, did I close that file? I'm bad about closing windows when I mean to shrink them. When that booster one CSV file is missing, it just ignores that there's a booster completely. So between like all of us that worked on it, we probably spent an entire day trying to troubleshoot this issue, and we cannot figure it out because basically that error should never occur, because if booster one CSV, that error message, like if it's really missing, the launch visualizer and RockSim Pro are both like, they have a workaround that just says, okay, it's a one-stage rocket or single-stage rocket, and we ignore it. So if anybody comes up with any reason that this could happen, and this customer has checked other rockets work fine, so it's not like his RockSim's broken, like it does work properly with other designs. And this same design that he sent us, you saw, works fine for everybody that's tested it here. So it's not a problem specifically with the file, because maybe he set something up wrong in the file and it doesn't work for everybody. And that's the problem, is with troubleshooting, if you can't recreate the problem, you can't figure out It's the same thing with intermittent problems, like something happens sometimes, which is kind of what this is. This person has like two files that are having this problem and all the other ones work fine. And we looked and, all of the things that I would think of that they forgot something all work fine. So if anybody comes up with any brilliant ideas, like this is one that like hurts a little bit, when you can't figure out because it should be impossible, but it's not. So it's a bit of a mystery, but it's been fun trying to troubleshoot. I tried, running the simulation and deleting that file, that booster one CSV, and then trying to run the 3D simulation. Like I've tried to break it and it doesn't work. So I don't know, but if anybody comes up with anything brilliant, let us know. And like I said, if you figure it out, I'll give you a free month of the Launch Visualizer or booster credits if you're already a premium member. And for helping us out, because that's one. But it's kind of fun when you have these weird problems. I mean, it's fun to assuming you figure them out. It's not fun when you can't figure them out. Um, but everything works fine. Tested it on Windows because we run Macs and that person's running Windows. He was running Windows 10. I tested it on both Windows 10 and Windows 11, thinking maybe there was a difference there. Nothing, 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 nothing. So, so that's been our fun week of RockSim troubleshooting. And these are the types of questions that people ask us, and it's a little bit tricky. But let's see. So we got a little time left. You guys are real quiet in the chat now. So, okay, Mark asks, can I add graphics to my design files in RockSim, decals, custom paint, etc.? The answer is absolutely yes. This is something I am terrible at. Um, so I will, at the very least, we can definitely point you towards, there are, now I've moved all my, there is a newsletter article that walks you through the process that is really helpful. What are we doing? I don't know what, Leander. Oh, I don't want to search there, Michelle. I don't want to search. Yes, it's in the search. Just doing a find on the page. This is how I find everything on our site. So if you're ever looking for something, oh, there we go. How to apply decals on the 3D rocket and RockSim. So this is issue 211. Or 123. Let's see if there's any. Looks like 211 might be the most recent one. 2008. So this is going to be from a while back. It still should apply. This is from RockSim 9 probably. But it's a little tricky. Paint is super easy. I can show you how to do paint and then we can talk about decals. Decals are tricky because you have to create an image that has to fit properly and wrap properly. So like doing a body tube wrap isn't quite as hard, but then doing the fins, you have to export say your fin template and then pull it into a Illustrator or Inkscape's free on the internet. They've got some free programs. You might be able to do it in like Microsoft Paint if that's even around still. But you lay out your thing and then you upload those to your rockets. But they have to fit. You can't just like say I want to put a picture of my face on the fin and just throw a picture of you because it won't wrap right. But to start, changing the color of your rocket's super easy, and you can do it in both 2D and 3D. So to do it, you go to the actual rocket design components and you open up the part you want to do. And then you go to the color tab. And so you'll have 2D colors. So you'll see it's blue here. And can you see? I got things covering up my screen here. So you got blue here. So I want to change it to pink. So my 2D, so my nose can see now it's pink in the 2D. But if I switch to 3D, I have this very zoomed out. It's still the boring blue. I mean, it's a very lovely blue, but basic blue. So in that same screen, you'll open up your item, go to color. There was the 2D color, and then there's the 3D color. And so you can change and play with these. So if I want it also to be pink in 3D, just 3D, you can change that there. They just fuse um, there. And then you can also change the opacity. So if you say have a clear, if you can see, this is kind of, can I move this? That's, the screen's going to be too, it's a little hard to see with the nose cone, but I can change how thick the paint is. So if you've got like see-through, like a clear tube, but a good example is the Quest payloader. This has been around forever. One. This kit's still available. There we go. So this kit has a clear tube, but it's red. So I can make my tube. If I go here, I can, as I say, our nose cone's clear. So you can play with the opacity here as well. So you can make it completely see-through, but then it's invisible. So, or you can play with that and make it thicker for that. And then this is just using the simple. If you go in here, you can change other kind of things too, but I don't really mess with those. I'm not sure. I don't remember what they do anymore. There we go. Turn things off. This kind of messes with some of those other things. But yeah, so say you want to paint your rocket to look just like what it actually looks like. You just go into each part. It does stink a little bit because you do have to do each part individually. So you would open up each external part. So we're going to change my color on my body tube to we'll make this red and also make it kind of see-through here. So if I zoom in, you can actually see there's the rocket, the motor's in there. That's why. Clear that out. There we go. So you can see there's nothing in here. Normally you'd have a parachute or something probably, but yeah, so you can just change all of it. So if I open, say, the there, but designs, what am I doing here? Apogee components, Zephyr, the Zephyrs, painted. Yeah, so the Zephyr, the Zephyr is painted just like the Zephyr, but it does not look like the decal is on here. So then if you want to, I'm going to switch rockets to one I know has a texture on it. So you'll see in this Avion kit folder, sorry, there's the RKT file, that's just the RockSim, and then there's the decals that are attached. So if I open this up, you can see that the decals are already applied on here. And you can see there, so for the body tube, there is a funny thing in it where, so this is like the side view. So the back side of the tube is like if you were seeing through the rocket instead of turning it. So your decal will be backwards on the back side of your rocket. Just that's the way that the textures are set up. So one side will always be, the correct way, and then the back side will be like if the whole front was invisible and you were looking at it. Um, you could correct for that by when you do your body tube texture, like actually intentionally correcting for it there. But then, and you'll notice the fins are also funny, the color and so paint. You can do paint two different ways. One is you can do the color thing that we just did. Um, and that'll get your body tube colors. And you'll, if you notice on our website, if you ever look at each of the kit pages on our site, has a little RockSim there. It has the RockSim. I closed you. Um, it has the little RockSim image, and 99.9% of the time we don't have decals on here because they are a little labor intensive, and especially for kits that aren't ours, we just don't have the manpower to put into the time to make decals for rockets that we don't actually make. We do it for some of ours. We're trying to do it for the newer ones coming out, but especially the older ones, we just, again, it's a time issue more than anything. But so, that still gets it pretty close, even if it's not, and you can still do the one fin. So that's way what number one, it's just to change the colors. The other option is to do the paint as part of the decal. So the Avion kit, if you actually buy the kit, the decal is this little swoosh here. It's not the red. It's just the swoosh. And then the decal in this case is the Avion and the red and the black. But like the nose cone is painted, you have to paint that. And so on the fins, you have to paint red. So the second thing you can do is do a texture that's all the color. So in this case, that's what they did, is they did a red background, which is technically paint on the rail rocket, and then the swoosh to go on it. So these decals are backwards on the rocket in RockSim. And the reason for that is that somewhere in the distant, distant past, I think the beginning of maybe RockSim 9, there was some sort of bug in the software where it was flipping things weird. And so the solution, I think at the time, was to like correct for it. And so when you make your major rocket files, basically you make it so that they look good, whether or not they're actually correct in the orientation or whatever. You just make it so it matches. Well, when we finally got to RockSim 10 and we started the launch visualizer, they finally fixed all of that. But any files that were made before that fix, now the decals are the wrong direction because there was a correction for a correction. So the way to fix that, or when you're doing your decals, so we're going to go here to our fin set, and instead of going to color, we're going to go to texture. And this is where you would upload your decal sheet. So like we saw in that folder, this is the Avion fin decal.png. So this is the file that was created of that thing. So you'll choose once you have your but if you go through that newsletter article, it will walk you through how to kind of set that up better. Like I said, I'm really terrible at it. We'd be here like till tomorrow if I had to set this all up. Um, but yeah, it's just if you're familiar at all with any sort of graphic design, like basic level stuff, I mean, if I can do it, you can do it. It just, like I said, I'm really slow. So you'll direct it to your texture file, and then you can see in this window here. So we can see they're backwards. So we have these flip around the R axis, flip around the S axis. There's some, repeat the pattern. So if it's maybe a checkerboard and you just do a thin strip, you can repeat it around or whatever. So we're just going to start flipping, clicking these boxes and see. So we flipped around the S axis and now my swooshes are correct. Actually, there. I don't remember which way the fins go. Let's go look it up and see. Okay, so swooshes go up. That's what our. So this looks right. So I had to flip it around both the S and the R axis to get it, but now it's correct. So then you click OK. So yeah, this is a really funny file name too. RockSim 8.1, build 16. That's, 15 years ago. So yeah, so that's how we, so now it's going the right way, I think. And then the body tube, same deal. You'd go in and you'd go to your texture. You would direct it to that decal file, and you choose it. And then you can also scale it. So if it's a little too big, a little too small, you can play with it there. Um, Scaling it both in the R and S direction. So this is set to repeat. So you can see there kind of, it's really small, but it's repeating that decal over and over because the repeat pattern's on. But if I turn that off, it's only going to show once. So, so yeah, so you can just play with it. Basically, at the end of the day, play with it till it looks right, is the easy way to do it. So if you've got the graphics, especially if you like say somebody who's, I don't remember which one of you guys just did your rocket with the rocket decal that was printed by Rocket Friend. So you probably maybe made a custom decal for that rocket. So you can take that file and save it as a PNG and put it in RockSim and put it on your rocket. So you can put your custom decals on your rockets in here. It's absolutely possible. And especially if you're smart enough to make the decal in the first place, you're smart enough to do this too. So don't worry about that. That's super easy there. So Mark, hopefully that gives you at least a starting point. And if you take a look at it and it's still giving you trouble, maybe shoot us an email this week. I can do a little studying and practice my decal making, and we can do that next week. Maybe I'll do that anyways to prepare, just to because I don't do it very often. So good practice there for that. So we got a couple more minutes. So one thing I was going to show you guys, Tim had mentioned, so that in our staff meeting, um, it comes up a lot, and it kind of dovetails on Carlos's questions about paint. One of the questions that comes up a lot is if I use spacers in my rocket, how do I account for that extra weight? So what that means is, so there are the Cesaroni motors and Aerotech motors. They have casings. We'll just test it right now just because it's a little easier. So there are casings, and these casings are different lengths. So you can buy, a 1 grain case that fits a 1 grain motor, or you can buy a 2 grain case which fits a 2 grain motor and can fit a 1 grain motor if you use a spacer. So it basically takes up that extra length. So instead of putting your motor all the way down your motor may only go 3/4 of the way because it's a 1 grain, or half because it's half. Then that spacer takes up the other half. So you can do that, and you can use up to 2 spacers um, in a casing for both Airtech and Cesaroni. So, I made it almost the whole time this time without yawning. So what they do is a spacer. Well, the problem is okay, RockSim, if I put a 1 grain motor in my rocket, it's going to assume the weight is, I'm using a 1 grain case. So how do I account for this extra length of my 2 grain case plus the spacer that RockSim and the motor weight is not going to account for? And Tim showed you you can either do a mass override, or in this case you'd want to do a mass object. So you're going to take your rocket and add mass to it. This is the altimeter, but you just go to your part that's owning it. In this case, it would probably be the booster tube or your motor mount tube. These are minimum diameter. And then you would put a mass object in there for the whatever the mass is. And you put the location. So you can see the slider here. It's going to go towards the front of your motor casing, so it'll be kind of up here. So you'll just put that in. But one of the things that came up that people ask a lot is how much does it weigh? So we are working on it. I meant to have it ready for today, and then it's just been a little bit busy with Tim leaving and everything. So on the spacer pages, we will be adding, and there was it on there a little bit, but we will be adding that information. So we will have soon, hopefully in the next week, probably, the mass, so the actual mass of this spacer, and then the dimensions. That's more just in case you're wondering, because RockSim doesn't care about that. But you also theoretically need to account for the weight of the extended case. So this is just the mass of the spacer, but the spacer's inside the case, and if you have a 1 grain motor but a 2 grain case, you have an extra half of a case that's not accounted for. So on each of the pages, and this was actually already on here, it was just, it's buried down here in this text. But if you're using the weight of the additional spacer and the case is 27 grams. I don't know where these came from. I'm assuming Tim pulled them because I didn't do these. Um, but so you can just do a mass object for 27 grams if you're doing one spacer. So if you're doing like say a 2 grain 29 and a 1 grain motor, or if you're doing a 3 grain, a three grain case for Cicerone, but only a 1 grain motor, then you would put 54 grams in for your mass override. So that is on each of these Cicerone pages already. And then we'll be adding the spacer dimension as well, just so you have it. So yeah, so all you would do is just drop that mass object in, but now you have that information a little bit more handy, or you will once we get it completed. And then for the Aerotech ones, I'm still trying to decide what's the best way to do those because Cicerone is just that one little piece, and then theoretically the extended casing size. Aerotechs, oops, no, I didn't want to do that. Go back. The computer's starting to overheat, I think. Close this. Stop. Wait. It completely seized up. Okay. Here we go. I got too many things running at once. See, so it's not just Tim who has problems. Um, so Aerotex reload systems are different. I mean, they're similar but slightly different. So they come with all of this stuff. So Cicerone has they have a regular spacer, and then in some sizes they have a half spacer or XL spacer because the Cicerone has one, two, three, four, five, six, and six XL cases. And when you get to that XL, in some cases XL basically means 7 grains, so you just use two. I don't know why they don't use 7, but they go from 6 to 7. So in one case, you just add an extra spacer. In one case, you had two extra spacers, and in a different case, you had 1.5. They have a half XL spacer, but so they're all just that spacer. It's reminding me to eat lunch. Um, Aerotech has the same idea. They have a regular spacer, and then an XL spacer, kind of. And then for Aerotech, you need a different forward closure than the open. So most rockets, if you're just flying a rocket and you're using the ejection, like a motor to push out your parachute, you have the regular open forward closure. With the adapter system, you can't use that closure. It doesn't work for, I don't know why exactly, but it just doesn't work. So they have this, it's called a floating forward closure. So what it is this thing that looks like an aft closure or a retainer. And then this piece, which actually slides through that, um, and then this screws on and holds it in place, so it floats back and forth, kind of. Um, and so this is actually the forward closure that you use instead, and they give it to you because you need it with this system. You can, in some cases, buy floating forward closures separately because they're somewhat transitioning regular closures to floating forward closures. I'm a little unclear on what the process is, like why they're when they're doing that or how they're doing that. But so some of them you can buy them separately, some of them only come with this. But that's a lot of rambling to say. I'm not quite sure how to put the weights of this on the website for the spacers. We'll probably end up putting the weight for like each of these individually. So like this spacer, these spacers, this spacer, and then the floating forward closure set as 3 separate pieces on the page, like we did with Cicerone, and then figuring out that additional weight thing too. So so if you are interested in those weights, check back here in the next week or so, and we probably will have them up. If somebody else doesn't get to it, I'll make sure it gets done. Assuming we have them in stock, that's also part of the problem is we're out of a lot of these, especially Cicerone. They're having um, supply chain issues for that. So yeah, so that has come up a couple times, so we're kind of remedying that. And if there is something else that you think would be helpful to have on the website like that, let us know. Send us a all my reminders are popping up now. Um, send us a note through the contact form or whatever, that we always, we get questions like, which rail button screw size. So we put that up there because people are asking what screw I should use if you lose the screw for your rail buttons or whatever. So if there's any information like that that you think could be on the website that's useful to you, let us know. We can always try and put it up. We don't always have that information, but so yeah. Okay. So yeah, so there's not really any other questions, just some comments from there. Thanks for being positive about me. And the last question I guess I'll answer was James, I think, asked earlier on, what's the best part about working in Apogee? Or for that. So there's a lot of great things. We're a small company. There's only 10 of us here total. So everybody's kind of involved in some way, shape, or form with everything. And I'm the office manager here, so I kind of have my fingers in pretty much every pot that goes on, which is great. So I get to help with, I reorganized the motor sheds a couple weeks ago because they were kind of a mess because our numbers kept increasing and we didn't have enough room. So I literally was out there for a week and a half just in the heat, rearranging things, writing procedures, helping train new employees or helping customers. It's nice that, we all are involved. Currently, I don't know if you guys have seen, we're trying to name a new rocket kit that's coming out soon. And it, I can show you that real quick. So we've got the whole team. The whole team's, pitching kit names too. So it's just everybody's kind of involved in everything, and which is great. We see each other every day, and I like that. It feels like everybody, has input. If you have an idea, you can always share it. So I think that's great. Also, here's our new kit that's coming out soon. Um, we are looking for a name for it. So if you have any ideas, shoot us an email or it's posted on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, our whole second TikTok ever, um, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Or you could just email, like I said. Um, this is based on the ground launch small diameter bomb that the US sent over to the Ukraine. They're using there, but we don't want to have a rocket called a bomb. That just seems like not a good idea with everything going on and stuff like that gets flagged. Imagine mailing this to a customer like Johannes in the Netherlands, and on the customs form it says bomb on the name, like not good. So we're trying to find an alternate name for the rocket, and ideally maybe with that acronym, the GLSDB. I'm getting better at that. But it doesn't have to be, looks like certain things or whatever. So shoot us a message. We're kind of keeping track of everybody. And if we choose your name and you're the first person to suggest that name, because we're getting duplicates already, you will get a free one of these kits when they're released. So this will be really cool. It's probably gonna be kind of expensive because there's a ton of laser cutting involved in this whole thing, but I'll show you guys the mechanism again. So it flies up and then the glider comes out and pops down. So that's coming out in the next like maybe 6 weeks, I would say. So keep an eye out for that. But but yeah, we're all involved in all of this, so it's a lot of fun to kind of help out with all of those things. And yeah. So yeah, and then Mark asks, comparing a single grain motor with a single grain case to a single grain motor and a 3 grain case, which is basically will RockSim correctly adjust the CG? No, and that's what we're talking about adding a mass object in RockSim. So you would need to tell RockSim that you are going to be adding that. So this is totally the wrong rocket because obviously the motors don't are these are 13 millimeter and there are no Cesaroni. But for an example, pretend there's a 13 millimeter Cesaroni motor. So we have added it here. But so say this is a 1 grain motor, but you're putting it in a 3 grain case. So RockSim's going to assume that the case fits the motor. So it is not going to know that you're putting in the spacers and the extra. So what you'll do is you'll do that mass object and you will put that. So that was like, what is it, like 54 grams? That's going to kill this rocket because it's let's do like 4 grams because this rocket's very tiny. But so say that mass for that extra case and the spacer is 4 grams. So we're going to put that mass in, and then we're going to tell it where this is, and this is where the CG becomes important. We're going to tell it where it goes. So if it's like in this case, I put it in the wrong tube. This is part of the, let's see, I put in the wrong tube here. So you're going to put the location. So I'm going to do a negative just to get it up there, not 100. So my mass, so it's going to go, that's where your actual propellant is. So you're going to put that difference in mass in front. So while I slide this, watch my center of gravity here. Or actually I have to, oh, we turned mass object override on. Yeah, see, we've got mass override on. Hold on. Let's save my changes. See, we got it all. This is the thing. If you do add mass object that doesn't change, there's a reason why. Probably that. Okay, now let's move this. So we're putting that casing, that spacer casing. So see how my CG, I'm pointing at my screen that you guys can't see. So my CG here, as I move that, so that's why you have to tell it where that extra mass is, or RockSim's not going to know. So that will help. That's why you need to put that in there. So that's why that comes up a lot as people are concerned about it. For a big rocket, if you're not going for an altitude goal or something, they're not that heavy. Maybe again, if you've got a giant motor and a giant rocket, but proportionally, like the 29 millimeter, it's not going to make a huge difference if you've got like 29 millimeter and a 4-inch diameter rocket. Like, it's not going to change your center of gravity enough to matter. But if you aren't sure, or you want to just be super detail oriented, you can just put it in here. And yeah, and if you put it like I did in the wrong tube, in this case, it's going to go from the front of the part, and you can always put a negative number in here to move it back. Ideally you'll put it in the right part, unlike me, but yeah, so I just put it right in front of where the propellant's going to go, so it'll distribute that mass. And you can guess, because obviously it's going to be halfway, but you don't really know where the CG is, but it's going to go right there in terms of the actual just mass location. So you'll pop that in there, and then that will adjust your overall CG. So that's how you do that for that. So I think that's all for today. Just as a reminder, last day to get your dental scaler for your tool of the month, and keep an eye out for tomorrow's tool of the month, those digital calipers. Show you, there's your picture of them. So you just turn it on and off, you zero it to tare it. You can go between millimeters and inches, and then you just slide this, or you can pull there, and to measure your, and you can do external or internal. So like a tube, this side will go inside the tube, or this side will go outside the tube. It measures the same either way. It just depends on which side of the tube you're putting it on, but that's the calipers. So they'll be out tomorrow. So you can check out for that. If you're looking for them, they'll be on the home page. If you scroll down, there'll be the new products. It'll be the first one in the list there. Also, our TTV kit came out this past week. This is a brand new kit that's really cool. We designed it around testing the timer, the updated timer 3 simple timer. So that's pretty neat. Take a look at that if you get a chance. A lot of people are buying it already because it's really neat there. And then, yeah, if you've got any ideas for our GLSDB rocket, post them on social media, send us an email, and yeah, you could win a free kit. So yeah, I think that's everything for today. Thank you guys for being patient with me and throwing me questions I can 97% answer. And I'll see you again next week. So if you think of anything in the meantime, shoot an email through the contact form, or directly to us if you have that, and I can prepare a little bit, and we'll go from there. So we'll see you next week. Bye.